Do you feel like you're struggling, simply surviving, or thriving as a healthcare worker? Knowing where you are on this continuum is crucial to being able to help improve your stress level. But we can't make it better if we don't know how we are doing or where we stand on this continuum to begin with. Welcome to the PA is In, the show created by PAs for PAs, where codependency with your supervising physician is a thing of the past, optimal team practice is the future, and physician associate has taken the place of physician assistant as the professional title of choice. I'm Tracy Bingaman, and I'm obsessed with redefining what success as a PA looks like and what it feels like. Here you'll find the mindset shifts, systems, and processes I use to escape healthcare burnout and integrate my work into my life. Work-life balance is a myth, and an integrated life where you thrive professionally, not a balancing act, is the goal here. My mission is to help you to grow into a unicorn PA who loves their job, has abundant energy, time to spare, and work-optional financial freedom. The PA is in. I've never done this before, but I'm going to share something intimate, literally about my intimates on the podcast. After trying Vibrant Body Company's certified clean first layer bras and underwear, I threw everything else away. Life is too short to wear bras that don't fit. So schedule your virtual fit consultation with their master bra designer, Heidi. You get to Zoom, do live measurements, and find the exact right fit for you before ordering. Use the link in the show notes or the discount code TRACY15 for 15% off your Vibrant Body Company order. Make sure you try the thong and the semi-demi everywhere bra. You'll thank me later. Welcome back to another episode of The PA is In. Today, I have a very serious question to ask you. Do you feel like you're struggling, simply surviving, or thriving as a healthcare worker? Knowing where you are on this continuum is crucial to being able to help improve your stress level. But we can't make it better if we don't know how we are doing or where we stand on this continuum to begin with. A lot of the information in this episode is adapted from a healthcare worker stress continuum that the state of Colorado released for healthcare workers during COVID. I've linked the PDF to this stress continuum for your reference in the show notes. As healthcare workers, we are exposed to various degrees of stress, and each one of us deals with stress a little bit differently. We've talked about stress and how to specifically complete your stress response cycle in detail back in episode 191. This episode is less about dealing with the stress that is ever present in the life of a healthcare worker and more about identifying where you are on this continuum of stress. There are 4 distinct levels of stress in the continuum, and the great news is that where you are right now is not where you need to stay. These 4 levels of stress are thriving, surviving, struggling, and in crisis. The research tells us that when stress is ongoing, which is all the time, and severe, which happens sometimes, it can lead to distress, burnout, and trauma in our lives. Each one of us has a distinct and different set of coping mechanisms with which we deal with these stressors. Burnout happens when the level of stress we are experiencing supersedes our ability to cope with that stress. There are so many factors that can contribute to where we fall on this stress continuum, including, but truly not limited to, our own personal experiences, the amount of support that we have in our lives, our unique coping mechanisms, and whether or not we are using those mechanisms effectively. The external stressors in our life outside of work, our early life experiences, traumas, and also the duration of time that we have been exposed to certain levels of stress. This episode will hopefully help you to identify if you are personally and professionally thriving, surviving, struggling, or in crisis. We will wrap up with some tips on how to move through the stress continuum and an important reminder that is just that, a continuum. It's not set in stone, and the amount of stress as well as the way that you handle it in your life are modifiable risk factors. So, first, we're going to talk about thriving, the green end of the spectrum, the end of the spectrum where you are doing well. When you have the proper coping mechanisms for the level of stress and the complexities that come along with working in healthcare, you are thriving. Increased stress is something that you're able to take in stride in thriving mode. When things change or shift at work or at home, you feel pretty ready to pivot and meet those changing needs. You feel you are able to focus and communicate effectively in stressful and everyday situations. At work specifically, but also in relationships, you are able to accept feedback, whether it's positive or negative. You make adjustments within the bounds of your abilities and skills without much difficulty. You maintain consistent, acceptable, or above acceptable levels of performance. In the situation where you are thriving and existing at the end of the stress continuum, you are thinking, all right, I've got this. You are calm and steady with only minor fluctuations in your mood, and you are maintaining normal sleep patterns and appetite. When you're thriving, you don't have a ton of physical or mental symptoms relative to the amount of stress that you're handling as a healthcare worker. The next step on this continuum of stress and thriving that goes from thriving, surviving, struggling to crisis mode is as a healthcare worker who is simply surviving. In survival mode, you may be thinking to yourself or sharing with others in your life that you feel like something isn't quite right in your life and at work. When it comes to how you're performing at work, you are a little less consistent. During this state of survival, you are more easily overwhelmed and irritated. When things shift and change, you aren't quite as agile and you can't pivot as easily to meet the needs that are being placed on you. Personally, from a mental and physical standpoint, you could be having trouble eating or sleeping. You aren't feeling yourself, and you may be experiencing physical symptoms like muscle tension that's hard to shake. You could be dealing with low energy or headaches, and you could have this feeling in the pit of your stomach that you just don't love. When it comes to feeling connected with others, when you're in a state of surviving, you may feel like you need to assert more control in situations and on those that you are in relationship with. Activities and relationships that used to feel relatively easy and enjoyable might feel less interesting to you and more stressful. When we move further down this continuum of levels of stress for healthcare workers, we come upon struggling. When you are struggling in life or at work, you're thinking things like, I simply can't keep going like this, or I can't keep this up. When it comes to work and the struggling stage, your performance is not what it used to be. You could have trouble concentrating, making good decisions, and performing consistently. Potentially, you're avoiding interaction with coworkers or families or friends in this stage of struggling. In the struggling stage, you could be experiencing downright emotional exhaustion, which, as you may remember, is a hallmark symptom of burnout. That fatigue, those aches and pains, the restless or disturbed sleep you are experiencing when you are surviving is made even worse when you are struggling. This is the phase where you might be self medicating with substances like alcohol, recreational, or prescription drugs. You could be numbing your feelings with food or less than ideal or healthy coping mechanisms. The next step down in the end of the spectrum, the red zone, is in crisis. In this level of stress, you have a disabling level of distress and a significant loss in your ability to function. You may be experiencing difficulty falling asleep or trouble staying asleep. When you do sleep, you could be visited by flashbacks or nightmares from the level of stress that you've been experiencing. Panic attacks could be occurring while you are in crisis. You're easily enraged and aggressive in ways that may be out of proportion to what is warranted or accepted as a part of the situation that you're being placed in. Relationships wise, you could be feeling volatile or withdrawn, and your dependence on substances, food, and other mind numbing activities has increased. This in crisis mode also comes with potential thoughts of self harm or suicide that exist in this state of crisis. So why does this matter? And this spectrum is sounding pretty much a bummer if you're anywhere but thriving, which the large majority of healthcare workers exist on this continuum of stress, not in a way that they are thriving. This matters because being self-aware and understanding if you're thriving, surviving, struggling, or in crisis is incredibly important to the sustainability of your career in medicine. Surviving typically implies this basic level of functioning in order to meet your needs and, as a healthcare worker or as a provider, the needs of your patients. When we are in survival mode, we are just barely getting by. Simply surviving each day, counting the number of hours until the end of our shift, the number of work days until the weekend, is not a recipe for a sustainable career in medicine or even an enjoyable life. We interrupt this broadcast with a very important announcement. You are not making enough money. Your practice and your physician do not understand the value you are adding to their patients, and therefore, you aren't earning what you're worth. If in the past your requests for a raise have been met with one single word, no. If you're working more hours than ever and seeing more patients, but you're not making any more money and you're feeling pissed about it. If you feel like you've hit the ceiling of your income band, this guide is for you. I've compiled the 5 most costly and most common mistakes that PAs make when asking for a raise, and I've told you how to avoid them and what to do instead. Download your free guide at tracybingaman.com/mistakes. This is even worse and more pronounced in the settings of struggling and when people are in crisis. Thriving, on the other hand, is when a professional is growing and functioning in an optimal way. Above and beyond their basic needs, they feel fulfilled and satisfied. They have a positive viewpoint of their own well-being. People who are thriving feel connected to the ability to grow. They feel connected to others in their lives, and they see opportunities for advancement. Those that are thriving are in tune with their sense of purpose in these aspects of their lives. Now, if you're saying, hey, I sort of hear myself in those, but how do I know for sure? How do I understand where I currently fall in that continuum of stress? The first option for figuring out where you fall is to listen back to those descriptions of surviving, thriving, struggling, and being in crisis, and to see which one feels the most like what you've been experiencing lately. The second option is to take the healthcare worker burnout risk assessment. It's a quick quiz that you answer some questions on how you're feeling about yourself and about your patients and about things in your life. You can find it linked in the show notes or at tracybingaman.com/burnout-quiz to see what your relative risk of burnout is, which will help to give you a clue where you might fall on this spectrum of stress. The third is to keep listening to the 5 aspects that are affected by where you are on this continuum and to take some time to reflect on them and how you are doing in each of these categories. The first is level of motivation and enthusiasm. If you're thriving, you're very likely to feel both motivated and enthusiastic about your work and your life. You know that not every day is rainbows and unicorns, but on average and in general, you feel pretty darn good about your level of energy, abilities, and motivation. If you are surviving or even further down on the spectrum of stress, you could be lacking motivation. You're resigned that the way things are right now is simply how it is, and you are dissatisfied, but also not inspired to make changes or to try to improve things at all. The second aspect is growth and development. Those who are thriving lean into opportunities for growth and development, both professional and personal. They are on the lookout for chances to learn, for credit, or simply because they want to be better and know more things. Thrivers are looking forward to learning and expanding their knowledge base so that they can continue to make the landscape better for themselves and others. When you are simply surviving or in crisis, you feel stuck or even trapped. You see limited opportunities for improving yourself or the situation. You are in survival mode, not optimization mode. Third, well-being and work-life balance or integration. Thriving people see this work-life balance and have found a way to integrate work into their life. They feel they are spending a healthy amount of time at work and thinking about work. Those who are thriving value their own physical and mental health and emotional well-being. Survival mode lends itself to feeling overwhelmed and stressed by all there is to do, and your own needs don't regularly make the list. Number 4, purpose and fulfillment. This show actually used to be called Fulfilled, the podcast, and then it was called Fulfilled as a Mom. Those who are thriving feel they're connected deeply and obviously to their sense of purpose. They feel the sense of fulfillment, that their gifts and talents are being used to their fullest potential, both personally and professionally. When you are in survival mode or worse, you feel aimless and unfulfilled. Those are hallmarks of being in that base survival mode. Last but certainly not least, opportunities and abundance. Those who are thriving see the world with a growth mindset and they see abundant opportunities. Even if the situation they are in might not be perfect, they see that they can change and that change can lead to improvement in their life. Survival mode is rooted in a fixed and scarcity mindset, where change can only make things worse and there is simply never enough to go around. Take a moment and think about these 5 aspects. So I'm going to review them quick. Level of motivation and enthusiasm, growth and development, well-being and integration or work-life balance, purpose and fulfillment, and opportunities and abundance. Are you thriving truly in those aspects of your life, or are you simply surviving? I want you to really be honest with yourself. Are you struggling or in crisis mode? If you are at the yellow or red end of the spectrum, if you are struggling or in crisis mode, I want you to seriously consider seeking professional help. Starting with seeing your primary care doctor, reaching out to a colleague, seeing if there are services available from your employer, seeking therapy or the services of a psychiatrist or a psychiatric provider. Thinking about your career in medicine and realizing that at the burn rate you've been experiencing, it's not sustainable for you is a really tough thing to realize. But here's the good news. There are coaches and resources out there for you. If you'd like to work with me on creating systems to make sure that your career is both sustainable and fulfilling, I want you to tap the link in the show notes and book a consult call with me. It's completely free. We will walk through where you are on the stress continuum and where you want to be in your life and career and create a plan to help you get there from where you are right now. Life is too short to have so much stress that you are stuck in the crisis or at the struggling end of that spectrum without the tools that you need to get to a position where you can thrive and work in medicine and have the life that you love. You deserve to be able to work in medicine, but also to have a career that is sustainable and works for you and the life that you want to design. Working in medicine and as a healthcare worker is but a small part of who you are, and it should be a small part of your life because your life has the ability to be so much bigger and broader. I want you to be working towards that thriving end of the spectrum and to have the tools that you need in order to be able to do so. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of The PA is In. I will see you next time. As for now, this PA is out. Congratulations, you've just joined an awesome club. By listening to a full episode of The PA is In, you are officially on the Unicorn PA team. Welcome aboard. What most team members do is they subscribe to the podcast because that allows them to automatically get the latest episode of the show. The life of your dreams exists on the other side of taking action. Keep making small shifts and keep getting better. Your life will improve, your career will soar, and you will have the confidence you need to create your own success. I will see you in the next episode. This PA is out.